there's every space for civil Sharia law, but there's no space at all for the practice of criminal laws that are alien to our constitution. And I believe he ought to have done that, but he didn't. He said it would fizzle out, and he said that we should ignore, or that he would ignore them, and eventually the whole problem would go away. And he also said that they were trying to provoke him into a civil war. And my response to that was that civil wars have been fought many times over. No matter what it is, that it will cost you. If you see evil, you must cut its head off. You must fight it. You must confront it. And you must never say that you will step back because you don't want to fight. Because the minute you do that, it creates problems for you. In any case, he stepped back from the brink. Political Sharia fizzled out. It fizzled out. Ahmed Sani, I think, realized that he made a big mistake. It fizzled out. And eventually, though, it didn't end there. The seeds for Boko Haram had been planted. And those that believed in using the great faith of Islam in order to effect a political agenda, and in order to use it to intimidate the federal government and others, and employ it for means that it's not meant to be employed for, realized that this is something they could do. And of course, it manifested again a number of years later in the form of Boko Haram. Let me just quickly say that in between that time and when Boko Haram eventually started to commit its atrocities, a number of things happened. Again, we missed it again when the same character, the governor, Ahmed Yarima, brought another interesting innovation into the affairs of our country. By now, he's a senator. He had joined the Senate. And what he did was that he traveled to Egypt. He came back to our country with a young bride of 12 years old. He brought the young girl to Abuja here, and he married her. And then he took her back to Zamfara State. Now, under our laws, that is the laws that apply in Abuja and most of the country, not all, but certainly in Abuja, there's something called the Child Marriage Act, which forbids the marriage of young children. That law has not been ratified in various parts of the core north because the state house assemblies refused to ratify it. But it has been ratified in the rest of the country, and certainly it applies in Abuja. The government of the day saw fit to allow a situation to arise whereby this man, this senator, a distinguished member of our society, could marry this girl here. There was a bit of hue and cry, but eventually nothing happened and he got away with it. Not only that, he boasted about it. Interesting to note that Egypt is a Muslim country, at least it has a Muslim majority. But in Egypt, if he had done that, he would have been arrested, he would have been prosecuted, and he would have been jailed. Yet in Nigeria, he managed to get away with it. From that point on, what I call the rise of pedophilia, because this is what it is, in the affairs of our people, and also the agenda to suppress women, humiliate them, and to destroy the lives of young children, particularly the girl child, began to manifest more and more in this country. It was done with impunity. Nobody was ready to stand up. A few people did, and I know that Zainab and a few others made contributions to this debate on varying sides, but a few, particularly northern women, stood up. Other than that, the Senate didn't really care. Our political leaders didn't care. Nobody cared. It got to a point that various diseases which are associated with child rape and child sex, just went nuclear in the north. And we had the dubious record of having, I've forgotten the name of the disease now, fistula or something. It's terrible. I don't even like to think about it. But we had the dubious distinction of having more children in this country that are young girls that are afflicted with that disease. It comes as a consequence of sex with young girls. And it completely destroys their internal organs. And Nigeria had the dubious distinction of having more sufferers from that disease than any other country in the world as a consequence of the activities of people like Ahmed Yarima. As this was going on, the slaughter of Christians continued in the north. That never stopped. I must say, however, that it was a mutual thing. It wasn't just Muslims killing Christians. Christians also killed Muslims, which is very unfortunate. To the point, and I'm ashamed to say this because I'm a Christian, to the point that I believe it was in Part2 in Jos. I saw a video of a group of Christian youths, so-called Christian youths, Berom youths, that not only killed their Muslim brothers and sisters, but they also cooked them and ate them on the film. That is the level of barbarity for religious fundamentalism, not just Islamic fundamentalism, Christian fundamentalism got to in this country in the last few years. So this continued. Churches were burnt, people were killed, various local problems. Immediately you would have all conflicts. Nothing was done to stop it, and we continued to lose our way. Then came the big one. From 2010, 2011, Boko Haram began its onslaught. They told us all that they were committed to establishing an Islamic fundamentalist state either in the whole of the north or in parts of the north. They told us they were committed to wiping out Christianity, wiping out moderate Islam, which is the true form of Islam, and killing every single person that did not share their own interpretation of the great faith of Islam. They went from strength to strength. Before we knew it, 30,000 of our people between 2011 to date had been killed. Probably more, but in this country, when 100 people are killed, they'll tell you only 10. Conservative figure, 30,000 of our people have been killed. Hundreds and hundreds of churches have been burnt to the ground. Towns have been taken over. The Boko Haram flag is flying in virtually 50% of the areas in some of our states in the northeast today. And I might add this, that most of the towns they've taken, like Mubi, are actually predominantly Christian towns. They have now given it another name. I cannot remember what the name is, but the translation is a center of Islam and peace or something like that. They've changed it from Mubi. They're flying their flag there. This is what they've been doing to us. They have unleashed complete war against our nation. Our soldiers are being killed morning, day and night. And you know, a lot of people forget the fact that these soldiers also have families. I was on a plane recently with the Minister of Defense and Minister of State for Defense, and there was one particular person who was a very young girl. She was about 21, 22. Her name is Naomi Abegunde. It's relevant, and I'll tell you why I'm mentioning this. This girl couldn't have been more than about 22 years old. And she was in full uniform. You know, she was in the Air Force. It was an Air Force jet we were traveling in. And, you know, I asked her, I said, you know, if you're called to go to the war front tomorrow to go and drop bombs or fight or whatever it is that the Air Force will do over there, would you be ready to go? She looked at me in the face and she said she's ready to go any day, any time. I said, are you ready to die? She said, that's what she's paid to do. And it occurred to me then that so many of our young people are out there in uniform, police, SSS, the army, the navy, in the northeast and in various parts of the north, being killed every day. And yet nobody seems to care. We do not honor them. Instead, we criticize them morning, day and night, yet they are giving their lives. That is where we have got to in this country. We are in a full-scale war. Now, let me just quickly say the full manifestation of the tribulations that we're facing came in the case of the Chibok girls, which we are all familiar with. But I will share, if I may, just a few words here about what some of you may not know about what happened with the Chibok girls. And I've said this over and over again, and the responses I have received have not been satisfactory because everybody is running away from speaking the truth. But the truth you will hear today, and I stand to be corrected. What happened on the case of the Chibok girls? What really happened? Who was to blame? The objective is to get the girls back. We all know this. And we pray for it, and we yearn for it every day. But before you solve a problem, you must first establish what the cause was, who caused it, and cause people to be accountable, particularly politicians like myself, and governors, and senators, and ministers, and presidents, and so on. Everybody must be held accountable for his actions. Otherwise, the impunity will continue. What happened? The schools have been closed down. The federal government wrote to the governor of Borno State that they must not allow any exams to take place. He was desirous of the exams taking place in Chibok. So he told them, well, they will proceed and he will guarantee the security of these girls. WAEC wrote to him and said, it is not advisable. These exams must not take place. That area is too dangerous. Let the schools remain closed. And if you want the exams to take place, let all the children be shipped to Maiduguri so that the exams can be done there. He told them that he would guarantee their security, the exams would take place in Chibok, and that nothing would happen. And the next thing, they called all the children back. Now, the interesting about it is this. That school was not just for girls. It was for girls and boys. But when the exams had taken place, the school authorities sent all the boys home. Not only that, they sent home all the girls that were related to the staff. In other words, the children of the principal, the children of the teachers, the children of anybody that was associated or related to members of the staff of that school. They were all asked to go home. The only people that slept in that school that night were the girls that did not have relatives or parents as members of the staff or school authorities, and the boys. And what happened? Almost 300 girls were left there. Where was the security? The governor who had promised to provide security provided no security at all. There was one man at the gate, that was all. Just one man, the gatekeeper, and he wasn't even armed. Not only that, there was no matron, no principal, no adult in the school with that girl through that night. Not only that, there was no NEPA, no light, no power. So you didn't have electricity. There was a generator in the school. They did not put any diesel in the generator. So those little girls were there all alone, without any adult supervision, in the dark, with no armed men around them, no security, no nothing. And of course, at 3 a.m. in the morning, the Haramites came, burnt down the school, stole the food, abused the girls, herded them into lorries as if they were animals, and took them to the Sambisa forest. And there they remain till today. And I have to say this, because perhaps if I say it, people will understand the importance of taking these matters seriously and holding our leaders to account. There they are till today, being raped, being humiliated, being abused, being degraded, being enslaved, just as Shekau said he would do. This is a man that does not mince words, and he always does what he says. And of course, they've sold quite a few of them abroad to wealthy Arab leaders that are interested in young girls. This is what has happened. That's the reality. And we need to live with it and accept it and understand that until we stand up to it and until we hold our leaders accountable, this sort of thing will continue. Now, let me just say, because I don't have much time left, that there's a local dimension to this and there's an international dimension. That is to the move of Islamic fundamentalism in our country. Al-Qaeda is involved. They are funding this initiative, just as ISIL is being funded by various interests from all over the world. Al-Qaeda is involved, and various other groups in the Middle East are funding Boko Haram. There's also a local content, in my view. I won't go much into that, and I don't want us to be diverted into politics here, because I don't think this is a political forum. But it is important to say that I believe there are also many people within this country in high places that are also supporting and funding Boko Haram, simply because they want to use that vessel, they want to use that group in order to destabilize this country and cause a change in government. What they fail to appreciate is the fact that when you ride on the back of a tiger, it will eventually consume you as well. This whole idea that you can control these guys, you can stop them, you can turn off whatever is buzzing them and causing them to do what they do when you feel like it, is completely erroneous. And it's something that these people that are supporting Boko Haram, encouraging Boko Haram, I mean, there are some people in this country that rejoice, believe it or not, whenever a bomb goes off and people are killed. And they cite it as evidence of the government's weakness. And therefore the president and the government must go. And this is our evidence of it. And they criticize the government morning, day and night. Yes, we all agree that the government ought to do more and can do more. But the first line of criticism, the first condemnation, the first insult and abuse, and the first rage must be reserved for those that are in Boko Haram, and those that sponsor them, and those that wish to kill you and I, and change our way of life and enslave our children and destroy our future. That is where our primary rage is meant to be targeted. I don't see enough of it in this country. People will get up and condemn and criticize the government. Fine. But what about Boko Haram itself? How many of our political leaders have risen up to condemn them morning, day, and night? How many of them have the courage to do so? They don't do it because most of them are scared to do it. And most of them will tell you privately that if we begin to do this, they will come after us. When will we get to a point that our leaders are prepared to put their lives on the line, just like Naomi Abegunde did or is doing in the Nigerian Air Force, just as all those children that are being slaughtered on the war front are doing? When will our leaders be ready to do that? I sincerely hope that it will be sooner than later. So essentially what it is this: we need to play our role in this global war. Now, the greatest challenge that we face in this country is not the February elections. Elections come and go. Politicians come and go. One set is here today, another will come tomorrow. They're quite expendable. The only thing that is not expendable is this country and its unity. And I'll tell you what, the greatest challenge that we face is not the February elections next year, but the fight against Boko Haram. That is the challenge of the day. That is the challenge of our time. Now, let me just quickly say before I end, the experiences of other countries when it comes to Islamic fundamentalism. Let me tell you something that will shock many of you, or at least it will surprise some of you. Over 90% of Muslim countries on the planet today are secular states, where Sharia criminal law is not practiced, completely rejected, and it is regarded as being unacceptable. I'll tell you which countries they are, because many people find this hard to believe. Turkey is one. Probably the most powerful, the most respected Islamic country on the planet today. It's a secular state. They said no to Islamic fundamentalism. Algeria is another. Pakistan is fighting it. Afghanistan is another. Egypt is another. Indonesia, which has the largest Muslim population on the planet, is another. India is not a Muslim country, but it has the second largest concentration of Muslims in the world within its borders. It's a secular state. Malaysia is another one. Tunisia, Libya, the UAE, Dubai, we all love going there. It's a country that does not espouse Sharia criminal law. Somalia, they're fighting it, and so many other places. It is only in Iran and in Saudi Arabia and one or two other places that you have the full practice of criminal Sharia law. So the point being this: are we saying really that 90% of Muslims on this planet